Gary Parrish. Welcome back to the CBS Sports Eye on College Basketball podcast, where we sometimes discuss camel fighting, dodo birds, and leaky black. Matt Norlander is here with me. If you're watching on YouTube, you know what to do to the like button. Shouts to Brandon Davies. And if you haven't yet subscribed to the CBS Sports College Basketball YouTube channel, you should also do that while you're here. Let's get into it. Interesting story developing in Knoxville. Zakai Zeigler, four-year guard at Tennessee, has filed a lawsuit against the NCAA. He is seeking a fifth year of eligibility. Norlander, that is more or less the headline. How seriously should we take it?
I think seriously enough. Will this win? I don't know. It's a headline we weren't anticipating, bracing for, I guess. But in the essence of it, Zeigler is arguing that he should deserve a fifth year of eligibility because there are other players in other situations that are given and granted a fifth year of eligibility. In essence, he's kind of getting at the redshirt rule that exists. So for folks that might not be aware, I think most people listening to the pod probably are generally aware, as things stand, with the somewhat rare exception of waivers, you get 5 seasons to complete 5 years to complete 4 seasons as an NCAA Division I athlete. I will pull from Darren Heitner, who's an attorney who speaks on this stuff all the time. He actually tweeted about this shortly before we went live. He put this, he wrapped it up about succinctly as you could in 5 graphs. So just brace with me here for about a minute, because I'm going to read exactly what he put out there on Wednesday before we dive into what we think should happen and what will happen here. He said that Zeigler's argument comes down to whether or not what the NCAA has right now violates the Sherman Antitrust Act. The case stands apart from other recent eligibility challenges. He references Diego Pavia and some others that got an extra year of eligibility because some of their clock counted toward being at the JUCO level. Ziegler's been at Tennessee his entire career. Heitner continues, but like those cases, Zeigler will first need to get past a threshold issue, which is whether eligibility rules are tied directly to economic harm. In order to convince the judge that this issue falls within the scope of antitrust law, Zeigler says he could earn up to $4 million in NIL with an additional year of eligibility. Zeigler's case highlights a unique inequity. Athletes who graduate in 4 years like himself are denied a fifth year of competition, while those who redshirt or take longer to graduate can compete in their fifth year. The complaint critiques that the NCAA's redshirt system, where institutions, not athletes, decides who gets a fifth year of eligibility. Zeigler argues this creates a discriminatory system favoring some athletes over others based on institutional preference. Many have recently speculated that the NCAA will soon provide a blanket fifth year to all athletes. No legislation has surfaced. If Zeigler can prevail with the preliminary injunction, then it could open the floodgates for athletes to enjoy a fifth year of eligibility. If it falls within the 5-year rule, its own application at issue in another case. We'll be watching this one closely. Heitner continued, athletes are asking me whether this case could lead to them receiving an extra year of eligibility. The judge likely won't rule on a motion for an injunctive relief for some time, and even if Zeigler prevails, the NCAA will likely appeal instead of granting all athletes a fifth year. I know Zeigler has been dragged a bit for this, GP, because he played almost 4 full years. He did have an injury that cost him a couple games, but he played 138 games. He's seeking for another year. He, theoretically, if he got the next year, he thinks he could make $3.5, $4 million. And so I understand why he's doing this. If you had me guess right now, and it would be a guess, not a doctor, not a lawyer, I would say this will fail. I am interested in the bigger question that it produces about, should we go to 5 years of eligibility? Well, we can get to that in just a second. Where do you land on this? Do you agree with me? Unlikely, or you don't even want to go that far, because at this point, when it comes to these cases, who the hell knows? Some people thought Diego Pavia wouldn't get that extra year, and he is going to play college football next season. Where do you land with all this, GP?
I'm more in the category of who the hell knows.
Yeah,
we'll see. I realize to some it sounds ridiculous, and maybe it is, but rewind 10 years and tell me how ridiculous what I'm about to say sounds. All right? If I'd have told you this 10 years ago, you'd have said, this sounds ridiculous. A dude named Boogie is a McDonald's All-American, enrolls at an SEC school in exchange for lots of money, plays there for one season, enters the NBA draft, but then withdraws after realizing there's a better chance of him making $2+ million playing college basketball next season than there is playing professional basketball next season. So he makes himself available to college basketball programs, and then the reigning national champions, another SEC school, gives him more than $2 million to move to Gainesville. How crazy would that have sounded 10 years ago?
When it sounded largely out of step. We'll get to Boogie Fland out of this official before the end of the show, by the way. But to your point, yes, I think some people are dismissing this as having no chance. Maybe we get to that point. I'm not saying it can't, but I just also this being in Tennessee is not lost on me. You know, Tennessee has new state legislation that really flies in the face of a lot of current NCAA legislation as it stands to NIL compensation for its athletes, and Zeigler, having played at Tennessee, I think also plays a part in all of this. So I'm not going to say it has no chance. I would guess he doesn't get the 5th year. And also the timeline on this, I'm still waiting for a little bit more clarity on I know his representation. I know his lawyers, his attorneys are hoping that this can get resolved by, say, the end of June. But I don't know if this kind of thing would drag on as nature of the court system in Tennessee right now. Is this thing going to be done by October? That I don't even know. Looking for an injunction and how swiftly that may or may not come down, I'm not clear on it. But on some level, Parrish, I am surprised that it took until now to get this. The idea that we've had NIL compensation for high major athletes, and I'm talking about Zeigler's situation specifically. I'm not talking about the handful of players who played at lower levels in junior college or D2, et cetera, and have some of whom have successfully appealed and won that additional year of eligibility. I'm talking about an active 4-year revenue sport athlete lobbying, or in this case, literally trying to litigate out getting a bonus 5th year. In some ways, it is surprising it took until May 20th, 2025 for us to arrive at this point.
Let me read you a statement from Zakai's, the firm that's representing him, and then I'll expand on my point. From the firm, here's the statement. The lawsuit alleges that the NCAA's rule permitting only 4 seasons of competition within the 5-year eligibility window is an unlawful restraint of trade under federal and state antitrust laws. We have requested a preliminary injunction to allow Zakai to compete in the upcoming season while pursuing his graduate studies. We look forward to a swift resolution to this matter so that Zakai can begin preparing for next season. That's the end of the statement. Here's my point. Again, I realize this sounds ridiculous to some people. I have Twitter. I look at it. But don't ever forget the NCAA used to say, you can't take any money. And then that was challenged in court, and now everybody can take money. The NCAA used to say JUCO seasons count toward your eligibility. Then that was challenged in court. Now JUCO seasons do not count. This is just the next step. Why not give it a shot? And I don't blame Zakai Zeigler at all for doing this. What are his realistic options for next season? Play in the G League for less than $1 million, or play for a top 20 team in sold out arenas for $2 or $3 or $4 million?
Or theoretically, go anywhere around the globe and try and make a living. There's also that as well. But quite clearly, his best financial option, if it's even available, the one that he's trying to pursue, is to try and remain in college basketball for one more year, and in doing so, make more in one season than he will probably for any other year for the rest of his life.
Yeah, so why wouldn't you try that? Particularly, I can't imagine it's anything out of his pocket right now. I can't imagine he's the one that has to file anything. It's why not take a shot at it? And I see somebody in the chat ask the question, why do guys think they can get a 5th year of eligibility for no reason? I could just flip that question. Why does the NCAA think they can prevent somebody from playing a 5th year? Take a shot at answering that.
Just because the NCAA is the group of hundreds and hundreds of schools that agreed upon its own so-called laws, and this has been
they're not laws, they're rules.
You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean, but
they're bylaws. So yeah, and for decades and decades, this is when you sign paperwork to go play at an institution, you're signing up for certain bylaws that apply, and this is how it's been. That's to play devil's advocate. That's what I would say.
Yeah, that how
because at some point, hold on, at some point, I understand why a lot of this stuff is getting litigated, and I don't even blame Zeigler for doing it. But there do need to be, like, this can't just continuously and forever be a thing where college athletics and the NCAA, and this is why it's trying to get some sort of government oversight and has been forever. But like it's okay and rational and reasonable to say we are going to have a certain window of time in which you are eligible to play college athletics under these parameters. And this, okay, if we go to 5, are we going to go to 6? If we go to 6, are we going to go to 7? If we go to 7, are we going to go to 8? At some point there does need to be very rigid, unbreakable parameters and bylaws on when you can play and what it is here. I'm not personally, I'm not opposed to the idea that Zeigler should go for and even receive a 5th year. I wrote about this and I said it on the show, GP, a couple years ago. I actually think college basketball specifically would benefit by having 5 years of eligibility for everyone. And whether that means you get rid of the redshirt rule, which is the alleged potential discussion that could come soon. And if they do that, we'll see. But I think the sport is benefited by having more players with more experience, older. The basketball is better the older it is on average. So I'm in favor of this. I don't necessarily think that Zeigler will win out, but that's another discussion altogether.
I'm not against rules. What we have learned over the past several years is that your rules better be legal. They better be able to stand up to legal scrutiny. Right. That's the way it's always been doesn't work anymore. Like strict amateurism was the way it had always been up until people said, we're challenging this in court. And now here we are. Mm-hmm. The JUCO seasons counted as eligibility. Yeah, that's the way it's always been. Well, is that legal? Let's challenge that. Let's see where we go. This is honestly, you know what this is? In addition to everything else I've said, not too dissimilar to what the current administration is doing. And I'm not trying to get political, but it just read a little bit. And what you'll learn is the strategy on some level is just get as much stuff, regardless of how ridiculous it might sound or how questionable it might be, get it in front of a judge, see what happens. That's what Zakai Zeigler is trying to do right now. Get it in front of a judge and see what happens. Because I know that in a traditional sense, this sounds bananas to some people. But if the argument from the law firm is this rule is illegal, this should not be allowed. And I can at least, I'm open-minded enough I'm not smart enough to know how a judge is going to rule on this, but I'm open-minded enough to know that if I were Zakai Zeigler and this is what I wanted to do, and I had the legal help to put me in a position to do it, I would take a shot at it because quite literally millions of dollars might be at stake.
Yeah, they very well might be. I also saw someone point out that the actual the court that this case is being filed at was also the same one that there was some, and I'm not familiar with the case. I'm just bringing this up for reference. There was a baseball player that also sought an injunction, and that injunction was not granted. So whether or not that winds up being something that matters in this one, I'm not entirely sure. I don't know if it would be the same judge or what would happen there. But this seems like a steep hill to climb. Doesn't mean he can't get there. I would lean probably he does not win. But bigger picture, I do think that allowing for 5 years of eligibility is a good thing for college athletics, particularly college football doesn't suffer from the same thing college basketball does in terms of having familiar players year over year, because it's college football. You literally have to stay. Like, it is a rule that has been challenged in the past and did not win, that you have to stay for at least 3 years, and whether or not that changes, we'll see. But that was famously challenged by Maurice Claret more than 20 years ago at this point, and that did not succeed. You got to be at least 3 years removed from your high school graduation in order to declare for the NFL draft. College basketball, obviously, you've got one and done players, and that has its pros and its cons, but we have benefited the past few years, the sport has, from the bonus COVID season, having players essentially given 5 years to compete, because the 2021 season was just, it was littered with cancellations and across all of NCAA sports, you weren't playing complete full seasons. And so rightfully so, the NCAA voted to allow that season to just basically be taken off the books. Now, this past season was the end of the bonus COVID era, but I would argue that having more 22 and depending on when you get into college, sometimes, yes, it can be 23-year-olds in the sport, is a benefit. Now, the drawback to that is this. If transfer rules are not going to change, and we don't really have any reason to believe that they significantly would, frankly. Genie's out of the bottle. Players can transfer. They don't have to sit. And the only thing really holding you back from doing that is, in alleged pursuant of an academic undergraduate degree. Every time you transfer, your credits don't transfer with you completely across the board, and that can really hinder your progress toward an undergraduate degree. But other than that, players aren't many of them, at least you look at the numbers, GP, they're not doing that in pursuant of a degree. They're doing it in pursuant of, can I make 300,000, 600,000, 1.4 million, 2.5 billion the next time I transfer there? The only drawback to me to having 5 years of eligibility is the portal so-called chaos would just ceaselessly continue. You would have all these players with one additional year of eligibility and no mechanism in place to incentivize them to not do that. And by that, I mean, there wouldn't be any, the first time you transfer, you're cool, but the second time you got to sit out a year, et cetera, et cetera. There's nothing like that that's on the table. And so you do, I think, inherently promote even more transactions in college basketball. And with that just comes, more frenzy every April. But I would argue that it's worth the trade-off and allowing 5 years of eligibility. And if you want to take I'm willing to hear other arguments against it. But broadly speaking, I've arrived at a point where I'm in favor of having 5 years of eligibility for every NCAA athlete. And that's just it. When you enter college, that's the deal. You get 5 years, and if you get 5 years and you're healthy every single day of your entire college career, awesome. But if for whatever reason, your freshman year and your junior year, you suffer season-ending injuries and you only wind up playing 3 years out of 5, that's the breaks as well. We obviously can't legislate against unforeseen injury issues as well. Where do you land on this? Because I don't think we've ever talked about it, or at least we haven't too deep on the pod. But since Zeigler's going for a fifth one, I do want to know where you are on that. Do you like the 4 and 5 as it stands now, or would you be in favor of 5 years for everyone, but that eliminates any kind of redshirt period? Well, the second you play, off you go and you get 5 years. Or, if you want to be done after one and you're a college basketball player, obviously go chase your NBA dreams.
It's so complicated because I think what we have learned, is that you can't just say this is the way it is because we say this is the way it is.
But you know what? I disagree, because I think that we are in the next couple of years. I think we are going to get to a spot some way, somehow. There will be there will be certain things in place. Like if they were to do that, there will be either government intervention on it, or you've got this. And let's not get too far afield of all this. Right. There's this thing that's been circulating at the Power 4 level that was reported on earlier this week by Ross Dellinger that, frankly, I don't think is even going to come to pass. But there has even been suggestions through rough drafts circulated among athletic directors and commissioners, where basically it says, you have to sign up for this. By this new structure that we're going to run, college sports in, is particularly at the high major level. And if you don't sign up for this and basically sign away your rights, then you will be at risk of actual expulsion from the conferences. Now, I don't think we're going to get there. I know, Parrish. Yes. I don't think we're going to get there. But what I do think that signals is there are going to be enough people within college athletics and even by actual lawmakers in this country that get us to a point where we will have certain new bylaws in place that, I know what you're saying. Like every single thing we do, can it not be eventually broken and challenged in court? Call me naive if you want. I do think that we are getting to a point where we're going to have some sort of new set of bylaws and everything in college athletics that will not as easily be challenged and winnable in court once we get through this phase over the next 1, 2, 3 years. So I just wanted to, at least. A lot of this is reporting from Ross Dellinger, who is terrific, like the best of the best. But if you read the whole story, eventually Ross gets to legal analysts. Do you know what the legal analysts say? I don't even know if this is enforceable. All right.
All right. And let's just play this out. hey, Michigan, we need you to sign this to agree that you will operate your athletic department in lockstep with the House settlement. Yeah, no, we don't want to. And you can never challenge us in any way whatsoever about anything whatsoever. Yeah, we're not signing that. Okay, well, we might kick you out of the Big Ten.
Which is never going to happen.
Okay, no, you're not. So shut up. You're not kicking me out of the Big Ten.
Or,
so
or the reverse of that is Florida State and Clemson don't want us. Please
kick us out. Kick us out, please. Kick us out. Yeah, that's the other one. Florida State's going to be like, we ain't signing shit. Kick us out. I dare you.
Yeah.
So, like, what are we even talking? It's all so silly.
I know.
And I don't care about when people start, well, these young people, when they transfer, they lose college courses and they don't transfer and translate and blah. I care nothing about that. I have young children who will be in college someday. Let me go ahead and tell you, if after their freshman year, somebody offers them $4 million to transfer, we're transferring. All right. And I don't care if they lose every credit that they had. We're taking the $4 million and we're transferring. Maybe to BYU, although I'd have to think about it. All right.
You're not. That's off the table.
I would not let my kids go to BYU. I shouldn't say that. I might let my kids go to BYU. We'll see. We'll see. Call me. Make an offer. All right.
This podcast is going in a wonderful direction.
Make an offer. I bet you AJ DeBance, I didn't think he was ever ended up at BYU about 5 years ago. So make me an offer. We'll see. So I don't care about that. Like, and I don't even think actual people care about that. It's just something people say. Here's where I'm at, and then we can move on. If I'm Zakai Zeigler, this is more or less the question I'm asking. There is a major university that wants to enroll me. They'll accept me, and they'll allow me to be in grad school. They'll keep me on scholarship. There is an entity that wants to pay me a lot of money to play basketball for this university. So the university wants me. These people were willing to pay me to do this job. How are you legally right to tell me I can't do it? Let's get in court. Let's let the lawyers get rich. That's where we're at. And I'm fascinated because what we have learned in recent years is, though we think about all these things in a traditional way, when you put them in front of a judge, the judge often goes, yeah, this is crazy. Why did you think you could do this? Why did you think you could enforce this? So why not take a shot? And I'm fascinated to see where it goes. I don't even have any interest in making a prediction. I have no idea where this goes, but I can, on a very basic level, I could understand the argument, and on every level, I can understand Zakai Zeigler's motivation for doing it.
Yeah, I do as well. I don't. Again, you're not putting a prediction out. I'll just put I'll put a half-hearted one out. I don't think he wins, but oh boy, if he does, then that gets really interesting in a hurry. I actually think it would hasten getting to 5 years of eligibility for NCAA Division I athletes. But we'll see, and we'll see how long it takes by the way, for this to resolve. He's seeking a 5th year, for next year, and him being a grad student actually helps his case in this regard. Like, if you're an undergrad summer classes and pushing toward all that stuff, that gets going in June around the country for the most part. But when you're a graduate, like, he's got the summer to kind of wait and find out. Now, you'd have to get almost any team would take Zakai Zeigler. Like, if he actually wins this and comes back to college basketball, like, probably would be one of the 20 best players in the sport. And we'll see. But I am surprised it took this long. This kind of thing seemed ripe for challenging anytime in the past 3, 4, 5 years, if not even before that. But here we are, and it happening in Tennessee, I think, is no big coincidence. That state has been one that has been at the forefront here in recent months of challenging. Basically, like, it's already trying to operate in defiance of a forthcoming House case settlement, revenue distribution, and the stuff we talked about a bit on the show earlier this week with Deloitte being the arbiter for a lot of these NIL deals. And Tennessee's laws, as I understand it, as they're written right now, are set to kind of operate in a little bit of defiance of that. So we'll see where this goes. And gosh, never a dull week in college athletics with this. I mean, I understand, like, a lot of people are just so over this. I do.
Sure.
There is definitely, from a college sports fan perspective, there is serious NIL litigation fatigue. I don't fault you whatsoever, but the reality is like these kinds of stories and these kinds of decisions, lawsuits, all that, they are rewriting how high major and mainstream college athletics will operate, for the next generation, essentially. So I get it that people get a little bit exhausted by this stuff and we can move on, but they are important stories, and they will kind of track the course for where we're going over the next 6 to 12 months and beyond.
I'm glad you said that, because I know sometimes talking about these things just matter-of-factly the way I do, it could come across as like, hey, you make a living covering the sport, and it is chaotic right now, and you can, jump on your podcast and act like whatever, but like we're the fans, and this is not fun or as fun as it used to be. I don't even know who's on my team anymore. There's got to be a better way to do this, and you don't seem like you care. I never want to come across that way. I understand fans' frustration. I don't like when I was a kid, there would be an awesome high school basketball player from Memphis named Elliot Perry, and he would commit to the Tigers, and he was going to be there 4 years. And there was no scenario where he was ever transferring that was just, I grew up watching that guy. My kids don't get that anymore. My kids could not name a single University of Memphis basketball player right now. Not one. When I was their age, I knew every Memphis basketball player, every Louisville basketball player. All right. My kids can't name one Memphis basketball player right now. The only person they would know connected to that program is Penny Hardaway. That's not good. I understand all the frustration, but this is the byproduct. Everything we're dealing with right now is, and this is perhaps an oversimplification, but you'll get the point. It's the byproduct of decades of.
It is. This is not an oversimplification. The NCAA pushed the idea of amateurism and all of this for literally decades, and it was the status quo. And then we, way too late, evolved to a point where a lot of these things should have been challenged, were challenged. The NCAA lost. The NCAA has gotten its ass kicked in court time and time again, and so that's why this is happening. Sorry, G. That's the point you're
no,
getting.
But
you agree with
you summarized it perfectly. This is the byproduct of decades of having rules that they tried to enforce, that once people decided, there's too much money being thrown around and the student athletes deserve some of it, let's start getting this stuff in front of judges. Let's start getting lawsuits filed. This is the byproduct of, they tried to enforce unenforceable things for decades. And now it's all coming home to roost, for lack of a better cliche. And so but I never want it to appear like I don't understand the fans' frustration and how some are rolling their eyes at the transactional nature of everything. This is all new. It is nothing like what most of us grew up with. It is chaotic. I'm understanding of all of that, but this is a problem that the NCAA created over decades, and now we're just in the process of fixing it. And this is another step in figuring out exactly how we're going to do that. Let's move on. So the Zakai Zeigler thing was a big headline from Tuesday, but the biggest headline from Tuesday was Boogie Fland, former McDonald's All-American Arkansas Razorback, formally committing to the University of Florida. We talked about it on Monday because this was expected, but we'll circle back to it now because our buddy Sam Vecini had an interesting tweet. I'll get Norlander's thoughts on it next, but first, let's grab a word from our partners.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
As expected, 2024 McDonald's All-American Boogie Fland committed to Florida on Tuesday. He's the second high-profile transfer to commit to the Gators. They lost 3 starting guards from their national championship team. They've now replaced 2 of them with high-level transfers. I moved him up to number 6 in the top 25 and 1. And keeping Houston number 1, that's the range I'm in now. Our old buddy Sam Vecini, who would hopefully join us here in a couple of minutes, is he tweeted late last night that it would be hard to have anybody other than Florida number 1 heading into to next season. Now, I obviously don't agree with that entirely because it was pretty easy for me to have Houston number one. I just kept them there. And I've got 4 other teams, I guess, in front of Florida. But Sam is the type of guy, like he's so smart about this stuff that he at least makes me take a second look at it. Like I don't pay attention to most opinions when it comes to rankings or anything else. Or at least you know what I mean. But like Sam is the type of person that would make me at least take a second look at it. So where do you fall on this?
Definitely not.
So where would you fall on this? Florida, should the Gators, with the projected lineup that does include Alex Condon returning to Gainesville, that's not official yet, but it is expected.
Yeah.
Florida number 1, Florida number 6, Florida in between. Where are you at on the Gators?
All right, here's where I'm at. And we did talk something. We basically talked about this on Monday because it was at that point felt inevitable. And the question was, would it be done by Tuesday, or would this not get done and finished until end of week? So we wanted to take a stab early. And then lo and behold, I think really within 24 hours, it was out there. He had signed his deal. I had sources tell me that the NIL deal, by the way, is north of $2 million, under $3 million for Boogie Fland. So in essence, you can look at it this way: Florida traded Denzel Aberdeen for Boogie Fland, which Aberdeen's a good player, but Fland's a better player. Like that is a big upgrade, and to me, puts Florida top 10 for sure. I wouldn't have them right now. And, I don't do my full-on rankings, as people know, until October. I would not have Florida number 1. I don't think I'd have them 2 or 3, maybe 4. I guess, with the idea that Condon will eventually decide to come back to Florida, I would say you can probably go as high as 3, 4, and really no lower than 8, 9. I was going to have Sam come on the show. Trivia time. What time do you think it is in Sydney, Australia right now, where Sam lives?
I
you got a 1 in 20. Well, actually, it's not now, so you got even a better 1 in 20 chance.
I know it's not now.
It's not now. What time? What time do you think it is in Sydney, Australia, right now?
I used to have a pretty good grasp for this because I would figure out when I could have Sam on as a guest at 4:15 Central when I had an afternoon show, and if I remember correctly, he would be waking up around middle of the afternoon. So I'm going to say right now in Australia, it is
Sydney, Australia, just to be clear. Australia is not one entire time zone.
Australia is one.
If we went to Australia and say, what time is it in New York right now, they wouldn't say, what time in America right now? No. Let's respect time zones, please.
I'm not going to respect Australia's multiple time zones. I'm not going to.
Trivia time for both of us. How many time zones do we think Australia has?
I mean, they can't have more than 1.5.
No, I think I'm going 3. I'm going 3. Yep.
They don't deserve 3.
We got it. There we go.
They don't deserve 3. They don't deserve
what
3.
They do. Sneaky big Australia. It's sneaky big.
If Australia can have 3 time zones, you tell me why Zakai Zeigler can't play a 5th year.
This is why you come to the pod. What time is it in Sydney right now?
I think it's 3:36 a.m.
It is merely 11:36 p.m. But Sam couldn't come on the show. I did ask him. I was going to have him hop on the show and defend it and surprise you, but it was a no-go for him. He did send a text though. He's
watching. He's probably if it's 11. He's probably watching Stephen Colbert right now. He's probably watching the Colbert show.
Something with the Criterion Collection, honestly.
No, he's probably breaking down an Israeli prospect who you've never heard of.
Also entirely possible. Entirely possible.
I mean this sincerely about Sam Vecini, who I love.
We'll try and get him on before the end of the show, but he said he couldn't be here. What do you want from me?
I don't have any idea how he knows everything that he knows. Like he knows everything about everything.
Sounds like a shot to me.
No, I'm being serious. I'm saying I could right now be like, hey, Sam, what do you think about Clemson next year? And he would intelligently be able to talk about that. And then I could say, all right, but what about the Pistons? And he could knock that out too. Just you could just, and then I could say, and what's that sport you watch down there in one of Australia's time zones? Tell me about that.
Australia rules football.
He'd know everything about that too.
Big Ascendant fan, I think. Yeah.
Oh, and I could be like, hey, have you been watching The Studio on Apple TV Plus? And he would know everything about that too. He just knows everything about everything.
You want to just talk about Vecini for the next 15 minutes and call it a show?
Yes. Like he's the type of person I believe I could call and say, I need you with me to talk about the Grizzlies for the next 20 minutes. I need you on in 60 seconds. And he would be able to break down like contract stuff. He would know about their tax situation. He just knows this stuff. And I don't know how he does that.
All right. So you're about to put Florida number one. Is that what you're getting at?
I'm just telling you, when he tweeted that, it made me go, am I a little low? And ultimately, I said, no, I'm going to keep Houston 1, St. John's 2, BYU 3, Purdue 4, UConn 5, Florida 6. But that was just interesting to me. Like that I mean this sincerely. He is somebody whose opinion on basketball I respect. So when he tweets, I think you got to have Florida number one. It makes me at least go, I should look at that.
All right. Well, here's what he said. He said, my pitch for Florida is that I think they're set to almost certainly be the best offense in the country and dominate the possession battle every game. They're going to have a real shot creation and transition chances with Fland and Lee, being Xavier Lee, of course, with both being able to shoot and play on and off the ball. I do agree with Sam on that. They're going to absolutely obliterate the offensive glass with Condon, Hauk, Chin-Liu, and Hand-Logden. So even when they do miss, they're going to get a ton of second chances. I do agree with him on that. Condon should be a 15-10 guy, and I think Hauk was their best player outside of Clayton this past season. It was a good shot. He's a first-round pick, especially if he shoots it well. I actually like him as a draft prospect even more than Condon. I like the A.J. Brown pickup as a sneaky one in the portal from Ohio. He and C.J. Ingram should give them enough flexibility to play the Hauk Condon front court lineups that were lethal this past season. Should be even better next year. I am worried on defense. I think Elijah Martin was way better than almost anyone gave him credit for. Ding, 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 ding. I agree. It was a joke he didn't make all defense in the SEC over Zakai Zeigler. Lee is actually pretty awful on that end, but I think Fland is actually tougher on that end and that he gets credit for being. And with Ingram in the front court, I think they should have enough bodies to make it work. That's his case for Florida. He also said he's lower on Houston's freshman class than most, but does see him as a top 10 team. He would have Purdue number 2, but Florida, he likes number 1 because their lineups that they have set up here allow them to be more flexible overall. So I think Florida has to be preseason top 10 at this point. I think Fland's addition, we mentioned this on the Monday show, clearly leads it toward that. I would resist number 1, maybe number 2, just in this regard. Want to see how Lee and Fland play together. Like coming in, Lee has never been a high major player, so we'll see if he can be a guy who up transfers and be immediately impactful. See how Fland adapts to a new environment. I do expect Hauk to make a jump, but I just want to see that front court lineup. Can they collectively elevate? Because in my opinion, the reason why Florida won the national championship, although there were many of them, was the way the 3 guards who are now gone played with each other and balanced all of that with what Florida put together in the front court there. And a lot of it was also like Clayton was just unafraid to take and often made really big, really tough shots. He's now gone. And, Martin being tremendous on the defensive perimeter. That's why I would just, again, Florida's now a Final Four contender. I wouldn't go as high as to be number 1, but now that Fland is officially committed and we can frame them properly, you've got him 6. Frankly, I think that's more than okay. Doesn't mean Florida can't be number 1. Of course it can. Of course it can ascend at that point. And right now, unless I'm mistaken, I believe by nature of you putting Florida 6, I think you now have them as the best team heading into the season out of the mighty SEC.
I do. I got Houston, St. John's, BYU, Purdue, UConn, Florida in that order, followed by Texas Tech, Michigan, Duke, and UCLA. I'm a believer. Obviously, if somebody wants to put them number 1, I won't call them an idiot. I think you could make a reasonable argument for Houston, for Florida, for St. John's, for Purdue. I've got Purdue at 4. Purdue fans have started to abandon me a little bit. They took me in as one of their own in the Zach Edey era. They've started to abandon me a little bit because I have dared move the Boilermakers.
I don't want to take us off course here. But by the way, Zach Edey, first team all rookie NBA.
That's right.
Idiots that logged on the internet for 3 years insisting this dude couldn't play basketball. Hey, you still look like idiots. Continue.
Yes. Jalen Wells, fellow Memphis Grizzly, also first team all rookie. So I do think we will have split votes in the preseason AP poll. It will not be a unanimous.
I hope so. I like that.
Yeah.
I want that.
I do too.
I want a diversity of thought when it comes to that. Although We'll see, because usually like mid-May, okay, we got enough differentiating, but it feels like the closer we get to that preseason AP top 25 coming out, groupthink tends to take over is the nature of groupthink, I guess. But I hope that we have 3, 4, 5 different teams receiving number 1 votes.
I bet you we would get at least 3 different teams get number 1 votes in the preseason AP poll, and I like that as well. You bring up Lee having never played at the high major level before. That's obviously true. I'm a believer in him. I'm obviously a believer in Boogie Fland. I'm a believer in Florida. I've got him 6th. But it's just never automatically sure how these guys are going to translate to the SEC or to the ACC or to the Big 12 or to the Big 10 if they've never been there before. Big East, you could say the same thing about Aiden Mahaney. Like, remember when he committed to UConn? That was considered a big deal.
Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure we talked about that. It didn't really matter much at UConn. You want another one? Remember when Cade Tyson committed to North Carolina?
Mm-hmm.
He averaged 16 points at Belmont. Oh, man, you put him next to so-and-so and so-and-so, and now he didn't do anything at North Carolina. Like, he didn't matter. And so, like, I'm not predicting that, but I do think it's important to always, like, be aware that the idea that these, quote, mid-major guys are just going to go to the high major level and be instant impact, big impact guys, it does happen a lot. Dalton Connect is a great example of that. Chaz Lanier is a great example of that. But it doesn't always happen, and just, keep that in mind.
Agreed. Before we get out of here, just a few quick just headlines, and then we can pack it up here. Arizona, UCLA are going to play next season at the Clippers' new building, and that game will it's part of the Hall of Fame series, but it's going to be a Bill Walton themed game, which is awesome. Love to see that. That's going to be really tremendous. That's going to be on November 14th. So that came down on Tuesday. I reported that Pat Garrity, who played at Notre Dame in the 90s, was a top 20 pick, played for a decade in the NBA. He's going to be the GM of the men's and women's basketball teams at Notre Dame and be the primary sports administrator for men's basketball at Notre Dame. The only other person who does that in all of high major college basketball, if not all of college basketball, is Baker Dunleavy at Villanova. So we'll see. Notre Dame's looking for a little bit of a bump there. They've been, under 500 the first 2 seasons under Mike Shrewsbury, but a notable thing there. Kentucky basketball, I did see this in the chat. Well, of course, we're going to mention this. Landed Braden Hawthorne. He was the last uncommitted top 40 prospect in the class of 2025. He committed to Mark Pope's program on Tuesday night. So how impactful he will be, honestly, remains to be seen. The majority of players that are going to be, you would think, the most impactful, are guys that they added in the portal. Plus, they already have, the likes of Malachi Marino there. But nonetheless, Kentucky got a good pledge, and I think now lands as the 11th best class in 2025 per 247 Sports. So that was a notable one as well. And then I think that's the majority of notable stuff since we last talked. I will say there is, I think Darian Williams, since we podcasted, I can't remember, but I think it's been official since we last podcasted, but he is looking into his next spot. I'd mentioned Ohio State was considered a favorite. I think OSU is still hopeful, but Darian Williams was on a visit to Kansas on Tuesday, I was told, and the 4 schools that were mentioned to me with Darian Williams over the past 36 hours were Ohio State, Kansas, NC State, which is interesting because if NC State gets Haggerty, you would think they wouldn't get Williams, but keep an eye on that. And then I was told Duke was poking around on Williams. To what level, I don't know. That is actually surprising to me because, as we told you on Monday, Cedric Coward going to pursue the NBA draft. Dame Sarr is expected to commit to Duke, and we'll see when that happens there. So I don't know how seriously involved Duke is with Darian Williams, but I had a pretty good source tell me that they at least expressed some sort of level of interest. So I think that's probably the next big, like Fland committed. Darian Williams is probably the next big name we're waiting on a decision on. We'll see. And as I referenced earlier in the show, GP, for some of these schools, they are going to begin summer classes, off-season workouts like the first week of June. And so these are undergraduate players, and so you got to make a pick so you can get on campus and actually enroll in classes so you're eligible to practice. Those are rules that still do matter. And in theory,
we'll see about that.
Wait till somebody. We should, at bare minimum, if you want to play college athletics, you should be enrolled in college courses. I feel like that is something that would stand up to litigation and intense scrutiny at the legal level. That's just me, though. So.
I'm not certain. I mean, who knows? Yes, the next lawsuit will be somebody will.
Why do I have to go to class?
Why? Oh, trust me, that's already been asked a million times for decades.
Oh, that gets asked weekly. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. I had one coach tell me a few years ago. He said they took a transfer from a school, and then they got the young man's schedule in front of him, and he was like, "What's going on here?" They were like, "Well, that's your schedule." And he's like, "What does this mean? Like this building?" And they were like, "Well, that's where your class is." He's like, "I got to go to a building?" He was blown away that he was going to have to go somewhere and sit around other people. He could, because that's not what he did at his other school. So that whole "why do I even have to go to class" thing, that's a real thing. But the next lawsuit, here's the next headline. We'll get it in 2 weeks. So-and-so has filed a lawsuit against the NCAA asking why he needs to be enrolled to start at the Division I level.
Can't I just attend the school in theory?
Can't I just put a bumper sticker on my car that says Big Blue Nation and start for Kentucky? Why do I have to be enrolled?
Oh, man.
Let's get that in front of a judge.
Seriously. Oh, God, yeah. All right. Well, I think that's a show.
I hope so. Shouts to Devin Downey. Shouts to Chester, South Carolina. Shouts to Terry Teagle, legend. Huck Larnell. Thank you guys once again for watching, listening to the Eye on College Basketball podcast. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe anywhere you subscribe to podcasts. Apple, Spotify. There is more of us than there are of them. That needs to be reflected in the comments. So do that.
Oh, wait. I need that hamstring diagnosis.
I do have an official hamstring diagnosis.
Yes.
I was a patient at Ortho South.
Okay.
On Ortho
you want
South.
to break patient-doctor confidentiality and tell us who diagnosed you while you're at it?
Dr. Christian.
Okay, there we go. Actually, I think you're allowed, right? If you're the patient, you're allowed to name the doctor. That's how it goes, right?
Of course you are.
Okay.
Yes. I have a partially torn hamstring.
Okay, but you said grade 1 on the show. Is it grade 1?
I literally looked at the doctor, who I'm familiar with. Our kids go to his granddaughter goes to school with my young boy, so I know this man, and I was like, "Listen, I'm gonna have to publicly say what happened to me. What is the accurate diagnosis? So where if it gets back to you, you won't say, he's exaggerating. Give me the actual diagnosis." He said, "You have a partially torn left hamstring. It is not detached from the bone. We will start physical therapy, and you should be back to hitting balls into the woods in about 3 weeks. But I will start physical therapy because I slipped walking up my stairs."
By the way, that also hit me. It wasn't going down the steps. No. You were walking up the steps. You were going against gravity, and you still. Normally, something like this happens, like, you're out of control. Your forward momentum carries you. You're fighting against the very laws of nature, and you still tore your hamstring.
It's rough. On Sunday night, a tornado touched down about 500 yards. No, but they confirmed it yesterday. Okay. A literal tornado touched down 500 yards from my house. I survived that, no problem. But I tore my hamstring walking up the stairs.
So technically, it's a grade 1. You didn't get the
I don't. The grades are, I believe, strains, like grade 1 strain, grade 2 strain, grade 3 strain.
I think grade 3 is straight off the bone.
Steph Curry had grade 1 strain. Aaron Gordon reportedly had grade 2 strain. I'm past the strains. I'm past the strains. I'm partially torn.
I think a strain is a tear. I think that's the same thing. I think it's the same.
I don't take it up with Dr. Christian.
You're a doctor.
I'm telling you, there is no way Steph Curry could run around basketball. I see people still questioning this guy. Like, why couldn't Steph Curry give it a go? I can barely get to my car. Imagine you have to chase
Are you like Leo in The Wolf of Wall Street?
Remind me exactly what that means.
You don't remember? He's on the ludes. He's like crawling across. He gets out of the car. He's like crawling into his house. You don't remember the scene? It's the funniest scene in the whole movie. Leo on the ludes. Just can't even walk. That's what I'm picturing.
I remember enjoying the movie. I don't remember every scene. I remember that one scene, but I don't remember every scene. But I remember that one.
One of the most memorable scenes of the entire movie. But sure, you do you. All right. Anyway, okay. Well, glad we've got a diagnosis. You've got some physical therapy, a little PT, and you're hoping to be good by 4th of July.
Oh, I hope sooner. I had just gotten awesome at golf. I mean, it was just now happening. First time in my life, I was getting unbelievable at golf, and then this happens.
Yeah. Okay. Define unbelievable.
Beating my friends consistently.
Okay.
It's you know how Tiger Woods' body failed him.
It's time to wrap this show.
I'm like a modern day Tiger. I'm like the new version of Tiger Woods. Just like Tiger Woods got awesome at golf and then his body failed him. It's a similar story that I'm living right now. It's a similar story I'm living right now.
What about the off the course stuff? That too? Are you good?
I'm pretty good in every other aspect of my life. I just can't walk.
Everything else. Yeah. Okay. Good. Just want to make
sure.
Okay.
All of the other issues that Tiger Woods is running into, like those are not my issues.
Okay.
All right.
Well,
but my body has.
You brought up the analogy, so
I don't know that I'll ever win another major.
Have you won a major?
I was getting close. I was getting to where I felt like maybe it's just frustrating. I finally got awesome, and then this happens. But I'll bounce back. It's a minor setback for the major comeback.
Yeah. Sure.
Am I supposed to tweet that? Isn't that what you're supposed to tweet? It's a minor setback for a major comeback.
Hashtag rise and grind. Send it at 6:14 a.m.
By the way, I hate that tweet.
Okay.
Lots of times guys don't have major comebacks. Lots of times it's just over. All right.
Maybe, and you know what? Maybe that can be you. Is it just over?
I don't think so. I think I'm going to learn.
This is what I want to hear.
It's a minor setback for a major comeback. I'm going to have a major comeback. All right, I got to go. I got to hold.
That's a show. Yeah.
I got to do something. I got to go do something else. And it takes me like 20 minutes to get from my car to my studio.
Yeah, that's actually true.
So I got to get moving. All right, we'll talk to you guys later. Till then,
see you later.
take care.
Bye.